Is Lewis Hamilton about to face another nightmare at Ferrari because of a revolutionary engine that may not be ready for 2026? Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. What followed was a ghost season. 20 races where the drivers, engineers, and mechanics knew that nothing they did was going to change their luck. Every weekend was a repetition of frustration. No matter how hard they tried on the track, the car didn't have the weapons to fight. Team morale plummeted. The atmosphere in the box became dense, full of uncomfortable silences, lost looks, and a feeling of resignation that was felt even in the moments before the sessions. Hamilton, used to fighting for championships, found himself out of the conversation for the first time in more than a decade. The cameras focused on him not celebrating podiums, but getting out of the car with a lost look, without answers. In several interviews, he began to show signs of emotional exhaustion. He went so far as to say that it was the worst year of his career. And coming from someone who lived through 2011, 2016, or even the controversial 2021, those words carried brutal weight. The most serious thing is that it was not just a question of results. The real blow came after the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Hamilton crossed the finish line, almost a minute behind Max Verstappen. But more shocking than the difference was what he said afterwards. There is nothing positive about this. Nothing. When asked if he was referring to that race, he clarified, "No, I mean, what's next?" That phrase fell like a bomb. Not only was he disappointed in the present, but he was beginning to doubt the future. It must be remembered that in 2026 each driver will only have the right to use for combustion engines during the 24 races on the calendar. Any extra breakage will involve penalties, and that with an experimental engine is a risk that borders on suicidal. Still, Ferrari is not backing down. They have bet everything. They have even hired AVL, an Austrian advanced engineering company, to accelerate development and ensure the reliability of the steel. But that doesn't eliminate the fact that they have chosen to prioritize power now and solve reliability during the season. It is an aggressive strategy, very Ferrari style, but also dangerously similar to other decisions in the past that ended in sporting tragedy. Hamilton knows this. He has experienced it firsthand at Mercedes when technical risks were not managed in time. And although he publicly supports the project privately, his closest circle begins to filter doubts. Because if Project 678 fails, the dream of the 8th title fades. And perhaps with it, the last great chapter of his career. Ferrari has built a beast, a machine with the potential to redefine the limits of the 2026 regulation. But it has also lit a fuse. And everyone in the paddock is waiting to see if that fuse lights up glory or explodes in the hands of the most legendary team in motorsports. While Ferrari tries to build its future on a platform that is as unstable as it is revolutionary, there is another front that is beginning to worry Lewis Hamilton a lot: the progress of Mercedes. His old house. The team that he helped transform into a dynasty, and that now could be about to rob him of the dream of one last great victory. In recent weeks, unofficial data has begun to circulate that has set the entire paddock on fire. Reports leaked from Brackley indicate that Mercedes' 2026 power unit is already generating 420 kilowatts of power on the test bench. Translated, about 571 horsepower. To put this into perspective, Ferrari is aiming for between 400 and 405 kilowatts with the Project 678 engine. That's a gap of at least 15 horsepower and possibly up to 30. In Formula 1, a difference like this is not marginal. It's not easily compensated for by aerodynamics or driving talent. It is a structural gap. It's as if you had to run a marathon with a backpack 10 kilos heavier than your rival. You can have the best technique, the best training, but there will come a point where you just can't keep up. Hamilton knows it. That is why his concern is not only for what Ferrari can achieve, but for what Mercedes is already achieving. But the most disconcerting thing of all is not the figure itself, but how Mercedes is obtaining it. Here comes one of the most technical and controversial issues of the new 2026 regulations, the engine compression ratio. The new rules limit this parameter to a maximum of 16:1, when previously it was 18:1. The intention of the FIA: control power peaks, reduce extreme temperatures, and promote more efficient use of fuel. But Mercedes, true to its history of finding loopholes in the regulations, appears to have found a crack. And not just any one. This would be an extremely sophisticated approach that involves internal engine components made from materials that alter their shape at different temperatures. That is to say, when the engine is cold, it complies with the ratio of 16:1. But in real racing conditions, upon reaching their operating temperature, these materials expand slightly and modify the volume of the combustion chamber. The result, an effective ratio closer to 17 or even 18 to 1, without technically breaking any rules. What they are doing, according to complaints from Ferrari, Honda, and Audi, is taking advantage of a very specific definition of the regulation that indicates that the ratio must be measured at ambient temperature, not under operating conditions. It is an interpretation as brilliant as it is controversial, because it meets the norm but undermines its spirit. This, if confirmed, would mean that Mercedes can operate its engine in a much more aggressive combustion range than its rivals. And that would not only give them more power, but also a more efficient power delivery curve, better recovery of the hybrid system, and more stable knock control. All this with an engine map that would allow them to get the most out of each component without the constant fear of penalties for breaking engines. Ferrari, for its part, is aware. But while they're still busy figuring out the reliability of steel cylinder heads, Mercedes is already generating additional power thanks to advanced thermal engineering. It's not just about speed. It is a question of control of the entire process, of how the technical rules in Formula One are designed, interpreted, and exploited. And this is where Hamilton's concern takes on a more personal dimension. Because not only does he see that Ferrari may fall short, but he watches with frustration as his old team, the one he left behind, is about to deliver another masterful coup. Mercedes doesn't just want to get back to the top. He wants to do it with a car that rewrites the rules of the game. And if they succeed, the man who took them there will be the one who suffers firsthand. At Ferrari, with a bet that still has no guarantees. The SF26, with its steel cylinder head engine, represents everything you opted for. But that same machine is plagued by technical risks, structural uncertainties, and decisions that have been criticized even within the paddock. Ferrari's plan was radical: sacrifice a season to build an unbeatable monster. But while the others improved in real time, Ferrari was absent. And Hamilton, instead of building trust, has seen his surroundings slowly crumble in his public statements. He tries to remain optimistic. He talks about process, long-term vision, teamwork. But his gestures, his silences, his lost gazes in the park firm after each race say something else. They are full of exhaustion, of disappointment, scary. And this is where the dilemma becomes almost existential. Should you continue to blindly trust in a Ferrari that has not yet proven to be able to build a championship car? Should you push internally to abandon radical ideas like steel cylinder heads and focus on more conservative solutions? Or simply accept that this dream, no matter how romantic, is already broken? Beyond the car, the regulations, the horsepower, there is an emotional battle going on inside Hamilton. It's the struggle between the conviction that brought him here and the growing suspicion that this time he won't be able to change destiny with pure talent. Rumors are already starting to circulate. Some within the paddock believe that if 2026 gets off to a bad start, Hamilton could even consider a premature retirement. Others say there are already informal conversations about a possible future role within the FIA or in the media. But that's all speculation. The only certainty is that time is ticking, and fast. The SF26 will not be just a car. He will be the final judge of one of the most glorious careers this sport has ever seen. If it works, Hamilton will establish himself as the driver who took Ferrari back to the top when no one else dared. If he fails, it will remain the great irony of his career, the best driver of his generation, trapped for the last time in a team that did not know how to accompany him. The dilemma is served, and the countdown has begun. Ferrari has built a car that is unlike anything else on the grid. SF26 is not an evolution, it is a declaration of war. It is the physical representation of a philosophy that says, we are not going to follow the rules of the game, we are going to rewrite them. And in that crusade, they dragged Lewis Hamilton with them, the most successful pilot of the modern era, the man who beat the best on his best days, the same one that today faces its greatest uncertainty. The SF26 is innovation. It's risk, it's audacity, but is also doubt, anxiety, pressure. Because in Formula One, it's not enough to dream harder than others. It must be executed with surgical precision. And at this moment, no one knows if Ferrari has done one, the other, or neither of the two. For Hamilton, the margin for error no longer exists. This may be his last big move. He doesn't have another decade to correct. He has no more winters to wait for improvements. You need results. Now. And that only adds more pressure to a system that is already on the brink of emotional collapse. Is Ferrari really ready to change the destiny of Formula One with such an extreme concept? Or are you digging your own grave with decisions that sound brilliant on paper, but haven't yet proven to work on the track? And what about Hamilton? How much longer can a driver who has given everything last if the reward never comes? Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.